So I've been out here in the shop all day just trying to get some stuff done. Loading up magazines, cleaning guns, getting things packed away and organized, just making it less of a hassle for me when I get back out on the range to do some training. And I've been thinking quite a bit, and there's a question on everybody's mind in the preparedness community right now that I wanted to address. And that question is, what exactly is happening right now? Like, what is going on? There's so many events occurring right this second simultaneously that it's not only overwhelming, but it's confusing. And I think it's honestly understandable for anyone in the preparedness community to not really understand what is happening right this second. And here's the thing, and this is what I want to bring to your attention and have you kind of think about, okay? We are currently at war. Now, I'm not just talking about kinetic warfare in the sense of what's going on over in Eastern Europe, although that is part of the equation, which we'll talk about here in a second, but we are living under fifth generation warfare right now. And if you don't know anything about the different generations of warfare, or if you don't know exactly what fifth generation warfare is, well, it's just where we're at this point in time in humanity when it comes to how we wage war. And a big part of the way this warfare is waged is to basically conquer your mind rather than your body and soul, right? This is exactly where we are at this point in time. And here's why. This is what we need to talk about, because what's all the things that have been happening? And once you start connecting the dots, you'll understand that we're living under a wartime environment and that you need to adapt to that and be ready for it. It's one of the reasons why I do all this training and I try to work with firearms and stuff like that. Although that might be very micro on the grand scheme of things of how this is all going to turn out eventually, there is a day or a time where it might be very relevant and imperative for you to be able to handle yourself in the sense of a self-defense scenario, okay? Because things are going to continually devolve into something more dangerous as time goes on. So, with everything going on, we have obviously spy balloons and unidentified objects, right? So we have distractions as well as surveillance or reconnaissance. We have data collection, right? That's all part of this equation. We also have what's going on with the train situation where we have derailments, which could easily be byproducts of cyber attacks. We also have certain trains that are derailing that carry toxic payloads, and these toxic payloads are probably a good target if you're looking for a specific train to derail that would have the maximum devastating effect if it were to crash. So all these things have to be kept in mind. The context and the timing has to be applied to the situation to kind of understand where we are in the grand scheme of things, right? We know cyber attacks are ramping up, and cyber attacks could easily accomplish a lot of these infrastructure attacks that we're currently dealing with on a regular basis. And we also know these cyber attacks are breaching the FBI as of today. We also have our healthcare systems that are being breached, where our data, including the data related to our actual health in the sense of maybe, I don't know, ways to analyze, a better way to deal with problematic types of people, right? All of that's being accessed, sold on the black market, or obviously being acquired by those who already have a nefarious intent. And then we also have all the issues going on overseas, where we have this conflict, which is just absorbing everything, absorbing ammunition and arms. It's absorbing attention, absorbing our economy, because our economy is crashing and failing at a catastrophic level right now. And of course, selling out the strategic reserve, another, I think 20 million barrels were just sold off, will make things seem like they're okay for a little bit longer, but eventually that reserve runs out or things finally catch up. But we have the situation going on with China. Of course, we have the spy balloon situation, but we know what's going on with Taiwan and all that ramped up aggression going on in that aspect, not to mention all the Chinese nationals entering down through the southern border and all of the sleeper cells that are already here within the country, as well as their involvement with some of the illegal criminal activities that currently operate within the United States in relation to gangs and cartels and everything like that. So, look, this is a multifaceted warfare that we're currently fighting, and a lot of us in the preparedness community don't even realize it's happening, right? Look at what's happening to society and culture. These things that are going on culturally right now in the United States of America. When something doesn't feel normal or correct, it's because it probably isn't. But you're being conditioned to accept these things as being the norm in order to continually push you further and further towards that eventual domestication. And you have to understand that domestication is not the same as freedom, right? So there is a lot of different aspects to how this fifth generational warfare situation is unfolding. And we have to definitely be vigilant during these times. Look, I wanted to bring this up because people are asking me regularly, and I'm sure many of you are hearing the same question or maybe have this question yourself. what is happening. And this is something that you should probably research and learn a little bit about because it's honestly what we're living through right now. And it's not something you're going to hear about on the mainstream media. It's not something that people are just going to spoon feed to you. These are things you have to seek out because you understand that something isn't necessarily correct. Things aren't right now, right? So, for example, S2 Underground. It's a YouTube channel. I'll put a link over here, or I think it might be right here. I don't know. I don't know directions, but S2 Underground has a great video breaking down 5th generation warfare. So I'll definitely link that video in the description as well as a pinned comment and that little thingy up here. So that way you can check that out and kind of have a better, deeper understanding of how all of this is applicable to our current situation, because I guarantee you that it is. And what's happening in Eastern Europe right now is a big part of that equation. We have to understand that that could eventually spiral out into its own thing as well, but more likely it's part of the bigger picture. And that's something else that we have to keep in mind, that these entities, especially when it comes to banks and everybody related to, I don't know, the way money and finances circulate throughout the globe, they don't necessarily have borders. So that's also something you have to keep in mind as well, because if you don't operate with borders, then nation states don't really matter to you unless they serve a purpose. So understand that there's always a purpose involved with why these things are occurring and why they're allowed to extend past their expiration date, at least in some people's opinion, okay? So that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the table. Now, understand that this isn't to scare you or to make you feel like, we're at war, I got to run out and, grab my Colt 45 and start going to town, right? No, that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make you aware of this concept so that way you can kind of apply it to what's going on and have a better understanding as to what you're facing so you can pivot and strategize for it more, I guess I would say, efficiently for what's to come, right? Now, I always have to mention this because it's a big deal. Midway USA is the biggest sponsor of this channel. They support me in what I do here, and I really appreciate them doing that for me. I have tons of stuff from them. I've been their customer for like a decade, and they do have a lot of what you might need moving forward in the sense of dealing with some of the more dangerous aspects of preparedness that we're likely to face here in the near future. Look, I don't want to put a lot of weight on this whole like tactical firearms 2A stuff in the sense of it being what preppers constantly need to do. I love it because it's a passion of mine. It's something I'm interested in and that I like to do. So of course I put a lot of weight into it because it's something that I can provide better information on because the passion is there in order to do the work and the research and the time behind the trigger in order to kind of find out what works and what doesn't, right? But of course, that's not the biggest aspect of preparedness by any means. Food, water, power, shelter, all those things are way more important that you need to make sure you have figured out. But this stuff is going to be a big deal at some point in time because things are moving into that new phase, and that new phase will likely end up being kinetic in one way or another, okay? And you can kind of just feel it in the air. I don't know if you have those same feelings as I do, but there's been a change in the way people are approaching preparedness. There's been a change, especially from the younger generation or the younger crew, right, of preppers who understand why being proficient in the sense of defending not only yourself, but your country and your morals might be very important in the future because of what threats are to come. Because not all threats come from outside of our borders. Of course, we all know that, but we also don't know what other threats exist that are currently already operating within our borders. So these are all things we have to consider. For example, right now I'm working on a new project. This is a general purpose SHTF rifle project that'll be coming out here on the channel relatively soon. This is a Wilson Combat Ranger in 5.56. Awesome rifle, of course, ACOG, RMR, things that you can't overly argue with anyway. But what I wanted to mention that for is the fact that this is all stuff that I find not only interesting, but important. I just do. I'm not gonna lie, and I think it's easy if you want to take the easy route as a prepper to just say, yeah, you don't need all that stuff, right? Go get an AR-15 and a Glock and then just throw it in a safe, and then if you ever need it, you'll have it, but you'll never need it, right? And honestly, I operated under that same thought process for quite a bit of time. I used to look at firearms as more of like a hobby, and of course I always concealed carry, and I had my rifles and stuff, but I was like, look, I've got a handgun, it's probably all I'll need, I'm not too worried about, getting into gunfights or any of this kind of stuff. But the way the world has evolved caused me to have to adapt to the new landscape and the new threats that are posed in front of me. And honestly, it's very, at least clear for me to see that there's a lot of things in our future that could push us towards needing this equipment that we wish we would have never needed, okay? And that's the best way for me to say that. And especially once you get into a situation or a position like I'm in, where I have this network and this community and I get to talk to people and meet people from different backgrounds and different industries, and people who are preppers but have a different perspective as to what's happening in the world, your eyes are open to a lot more concepts and a lot more threats and a lot more danger than maybe you realized even existed before. And once you start having these conversations and you start understanding what people in the know are concerned about and what they are preparing for in the sense of like near future situations, it gets you a little bit more motivated to make sure you at least can take care of yourself, okay? So I wanted to have this conversation because, like I said, I'm out here. This is kind of my hangout spot. You know, I like to be out here, and I got some cool stuff coming my way in the sense of making this place even a little bit more secure. So that should be interesting. But look, fifth generation warfare is a real thing, and we're living under it right this second. And it's been going on for quite a bit of time. And if you're not familiar with things like economic hitmen or anything along those lines, then you probably need to start doing some reading and some research as to what these terms and what all this stuff means in order to kind of have a better understanding as to the problems that you're facing. Because I honestly feel like as a community, we share in these issues and these challenges, and we have to be ready for what comes, honestly. And I wish I didn't have to say it like that, but I mean, here we are. So if you have anything else to add, which I'm sure you do, leave it in the comments below. There's a lot of great channels and there's a lot of great information out there. And we could talk about the nuclear threat all day long. And there's going to be some CBRN type stuff coming up here on the channel because I got some cool military surplus gear that I'll be showing you as an option for getting yourself and your family prepared. I want to talk about, fallout shelters, like in a recent video where, maybe there's something I can work on this spring to give people an idea about something that's more budget friendly, but still at least rudimentarily capable of protecting you from nuclear fallout. There's a lot of stuff we have to cover, Food is still huge. And honestly, I can't even believe how much money or equity I've earned off of food that I put away years ago that is now worth so much more than when I bought it. So if you want any proof as to why you should be prepping food, it doesn't even have to be related to needing it for an emergency. You could just call it an investment at this point. But these are all things that we need to continually discuss. And honestly, without all of you kind of supporting me and moving me forward and motivating me to become better prepared and trying to find new ways to share information and just ideas with all of you, well, I wouldn't be as prepared as I am right now. So I have to thank you for that because it's been huge for me to be able to get to the level of preparedness that I'm currently at, and I still have a lot to do. So there's going to be a lot more of that coming up here in the future, and hopefully you're still working hard too, because man, I'm just really not looking forward to some of the things that seem to be on the table at this point. And I hope the table gets flipped over and reset before all this stuff actually serves our full 7-course meal. And that's a bad metaphor, but that's what we're going to end on. And that's it for Magic Prepper.